I had this thought, call it angels, call it my own spirit. I don't know, but this thought hit me. It came out of nowhere. I wasn't thinking about anything. I was looking at road signs, and this thought came to me, and it said, you are driven and motivated so that you gain acceptance and love from other people. Hey, Jer, it's really nice to be with you today.
Hey, Jen.
Hey,
I'm so grateful to be in the studio. I think it's actually a good opener is to start.
It totally
completely can.
Because I know you love it so much. So when I started, remember that one time, like when we recorded a couple months ago and we left and you said, where'd you go? Like, how come none Jen showed up to the episode?
Yeah, none as in, we don't mean N-O-N-E. She means N-U-N. She said, I'm so sorry I showed up like a nun. I did ask where you went. And what I meant is like, you were vacant from your body was here. What was the deal? This is our...
My mind was not there.
This is, we're making a disclaimer for this episode.
I've just been waiting to actually like bring this up on air to say, oh yeah, we walked out of here and you're like, hello, McFly, is anybody home?
Is this our disclaimer for the other episode or are we just going with this?
No, this is not it.
We're just going
with this, yeah.
But, well, this is a disclaimer.
I know.
You may hate our content. That's our disclaimer. Maybe this sucks. Okay, keep going.
No, and I know that you love it. I know at least my friend Camille loves it. Shout out to Camille. She's like, they need to be longer than 20 minutes. 20 minutes is not long enough.
They're all longer than that
more
now.
Episodes.
Every one of them's longer.
No, but I love that when we walked out, you're like, where did you go? And listening to it, that was actually
By the way,
challenging.
This is way more you right now. I'm actually loving this you. A lot right now.
Thank you.
Like this feels like legitimately.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay, so there's
not my news broadcaster.
Well,
Jen?
it was so funny because when I first met Jen, I'm like, when I first met Jen, that was odd. See, this is I'm actually
newscaster.
Okay,
Jen.
here's what I want to do. We're going to name in this episode. Today we're going to talk about a really light topic, which is, by the way, what is the topic? What is? Just say the phrase.
Seeing what we can't see.
Yeah.
Or eyes to see. I've been calling it eyes to see.
Eyes to see. So we'll get to that light topic in a minute. But I think actually it would be helpful. The podcast is unchained, and we're still trying to figure out if that's. By the way, Blake with Blueform Media at Blueform Media is listening and recording this right now. Blake, it's hard for people to find it on YouTube, and so we might have to rethink that. I don't know. We'll talk about it. I think part of the authenticity of that we're trying to bring to the podcast is actually to name a little more often what's happening in the podcast.
Yeah.
We just did another episode and you did the Walter Mitty zone out.
I totally did.
I didn't name it, but I said, did you almost fall asleep for a minute? And you said sometimes what? Because he does that, right?
I zone out just for a second.
She literally. So if anyone's watching this on video, if you're not watching,
tell me that you zone out sometimes. Do you know
I fully
zone
do.
Out? Maybe you talk a lot. Anyway, keep going.
I fully do. Which actually we can insert this and cut it for the disclaimer for the other episode. If you're watching on video, I was talking to Jen, and all of a sudden she just went like this, and I was like. But I didn't want to say it because we're kind of deep in a discussion and it threw me off for a minute. And then you hilariously quipped, sometimes I zone out and I realized that's the Walter Mitty zone out.
Yeah. You know what? I'll take it because I love that movie. I love Walter Mitty.
It's one of the greatest films of all time.
It is so good. And it really, really makes me want to go to Ireland or Scotland. Which one? He goes to Scotland.
I'm actually laughing because he didn't go to any of them. But he did go to... Blake's laughing through the wall. He went to Iceland.
Oh. He was...
I'm loving Blake's laugh. Blake, your laugh's so good, dude.
I said ice skating. When he's rollerblading down that like amazing road, that's Iceland?
Well,
why did I forget
he wasn't rollerblading either. No, he was on a skateboard. This has gotten incredible.
Oh my god!
Oh my gosh! The beauty of this. Okay, I'm actually going to tell a super funny story about you that people don't know. I wonder if we could go back and find that. Oh, it's on your Instagram. The apparently video.
Oh, well,
It's
I
on
have
your
it
channel.
on my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is actually super hilarious to see you acting like yourself, and Blake laughing through a wall is so good. He went to Iceland, and he did go to Papa Murphy's in Iceland, which is so good. But then this is not the hilarious story, but when I went to the Wild at Heart boot camp in 2020, Jen does know this. They had a movie night. 450 men can go to this boot camp. And by the way, this is different than the yeah, we're going to come fight on the beach and make you men. Not those dumb boot camps, because I actually think that those are mock maturity exercises for men. I actually think that most men don't totally need that. I think most men actually need
the
to come clean with their heart. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but when I was at Wild at Heart boot camp, which actually is a Christian non-denominational boot camp, right? John Eldridge, 450 men, it is a lottery to get in. It's that hard to get in. And the movie they showed was Walter Mitty, right? It's that poignant. And how good is the soundtrack?
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. I love it.
But the funny story, and then I'm going to let Jen lead. This is her episode. We're doing this thing where we both bring a topic. I brought another topic, which was about blame, because I'm a world-class blamer, apparently.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. And I actually think you're, all kidding aside, a world-class. You have eyes to see.
Thank you. Wow.
And so you do. I think it's actually a talent, a gift. But when I first met Jen, it was comical because I met her on this dating app, Hinge. And after a bunch of I'm way compressing this.
Sure.
After a bunch of back and forth, I said, "Oh my gosh, wait a minute." And I said, "Are you the girl from the Apparently video?" And some of you will remember that Ellen DeGeneres had the funny redheaded Apparently kid on her show about 10 years ago, maybe 12. And he was like, "Apparently," he'd say this. Well, she was completely delirious.
I was having a full meltdown.
Yeah.
Meltdown.
At 4:00 in the morning. She hadn't slept in 48, maybe more hours. She was in the middle of a 100-mile 115.
Who's counting?
Okay, cool. Just kidding. That is a big deal.
Counting?
115-mile running /
That's cool.
excursion. And she's wrapped in a foil blanket, and all of her friends are around, and they have the glow of their flashlight on her. And she's like, "Apparently my battery died on my waist belt, and apparently I didn't bring enough nutrition, and apparently," but what was happening is they all just started to giggle at the comedy of this, and she was not trying to be funny.
Yeah. No, I was on the verge of tears.
Yeah.
Right? This was
here's the interesting thing about
low,
this.
low. Uh-huh.
It is a very attractive version of you, the very real you, right?
Apparently version.
Well, just this you not being a nun.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that's what's awesome about this episode, because we're talking eyes to see and becoming unchained today.
Let's fire this sucker up.
Do you know what's funny on the Apparently video, by the way? And no, I did not use the word apparently because of the kid. It just was what word came out of me. I just was in a state of delirium and fatigue. But anyway, you probably you had your own apparently moments in your bike race in the point to point. You didn't say the word apparently, and you weren't as vocal, but you were having those. Oh, right? Have you thought of that? Anyway, just want to throw that out there.
1,000%. And if you haven't heard the episode, it is, we don't even know what it's called yet, because we recorded these back to back, but it's something about, the payoff of blame.
Mm-hmm.
And that may be the title is. Yeah.
Payoff
what
of
is
blame.
the payoff for blame?
So go listen to that episode.
Yeah, go listen to that episode. I think that you guys will dig on the thing. And when you race on a mountain bike at elevation for 11 hours with no headphones, no AirPods. By the way, Blake, who's again reporting for us, does that boggle your mind, dude, that they have a strict no headphone policy? No music. Mm-hmm. And what's funny is in races, I could range from full heavy metal to freaking George Winston piano music. Because your moods go through a lot, and you're in the mountains, right? Mm-hmm. There were a lot of apparently moments, because I realized after that I had to go off into some far off places to survive. So eyes, this eyes to see, which is kind of a biblical type phrase.
A little bit, yeah. Well, and it's funny because I've been thinking about this a lot. A lot of interwoven themes related to this, but I want to start with a quote that I love, and so related, but and let me silence my phone. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah, well, earlier I had to silence my freaking car alarm.
Yeah.
So that's in an episode.
But so one of my favorite quotes is, there is no change in growth, and there is no, let me rephrase that. Oh my goodness. There is no comfort in growth, and there is no growth in comfort.
There is, okay, I want to repeat it again.
There is no
comfort in growth.
Flip those. There is no growth in comfort, and there is no comfort in growth.
Whoa.
Right? So I'll say that again. There is no comfort in growth. No, there is no growth in comfort, and there is no comfort in growth.
And I think you could interchange it if you really.
I mean, you can. I just like stating there is no comfort in growth. Latter in like as the last part, because growth is uncomfortable. Whenever we grow, right? Like we talk about growing pains, and anything that like when something grows, I mean, even seeds in the ground, they have to first develop roots, and that's uncomfortable. They're having to penetrate through soil, and then they have to penetrate through the earth and grow. I mean, that's an uncomfortable process. So growth is uncomfortable, but the hardest kind of growth is inner growth and the inner work. And we spend so much of our lives focused on the external. And by the way, I'm sitting like this because I have a thing in my toe and it hurts.
I tell you, going back to being authentic in our podcast, part of the reason I like you sitting like this is I think it's a lot more, quite frankly, I think it's way more welcoming to guests, to our listeners, I mean, when we are actually cozy in the studio.
Yeah.
And there's a big trend
right
now with media, with people are like, we've moved away from suit and ties. We've moved away from like Catholic nun robes. Yeah. Which is what you were wearing on the first episodes we did. I was
not wearing that. I just came across like that. I was in a state of delirium. Anyhow.
Well,
But you want to keep going on that?
Well, I think that I'm going to transition or segue perfectly with your stuff. All of your stuff. I think that the growth comfort quote, right? No comfort in growth and no growth in comfort and vice versa, is pretty darn spot on, because we say we want to grow. Well, some of us say we want to grow. I actually have talked to people who are like,
I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable
out.
Where I am. Yes.
My once upon a time therapist, Steve Allred, I've had like 17 of them. It hasn't been 17, but I've definitely worked with a good number over 15 years. Said that he would have people come in his episode. Everything's just podcast terminology. People would come in his office and they'd come to 1 to 2 sessions. And typically he said 2, because in the first session they would download like, I was born and raised here, and here's my background, and here's all my problems. Well, all that was a travel log of their life and how they got there. Mm-hmm. And in the second session, they would start to get into the nitty gritty. And what they would do is they'd go, yeah, I think I'm good. I took a look under the hood. I don't like what I saw. Yeah. It's too painful.
Yeah.
And he kind of quipped, they're like, I'm just going to go back to Netflix and a beer in the evening.
Yeah.
And it might be Netflix and Diet Coke or ice cream, but right?
Yeah.
Because like this is just, it ranges somewhere between the growth between just too painful and fully terrifying.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
No, I mean, I think that's like perfect, because change is hard, right? And one of my other favorite quotes is, we change when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change.
Oh,
but ultimately,
talked about it with my team recently.
Did you?
Well, because you don't, until you get fed up and sick and tired of your own bullshit, which is another way to say it. Mm-hmm. It is pretty comfortable to stay in your own sty, your pigsty.
Yeah. Oh, very much so. Until we have some sort of catalyst, and oftentimes change comes from a catalyst, right? Generally an external catalyst.
Yeah, you get your butt kicked in some way.
Yeah, and whether it's a partner who brings things forth to us and we think, wait, what? And then we get to choose, do we react to that or do we respond?
Or a partner walks out.
Exactly.
I mean, an external catalyst, by the way, for most people is like an absolute catastrophe, like a divorce.
Sure. Well, that's a major catalyst, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, hopefully we don't have to live our lives to that point.
We shouldn't have to, but
many times we do.
I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I was doing personal growth work long before I was divorced.
Yeah.
but holy
that's
cow.
who you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's who
I was
am.
doing that for, I don't know,
Your
a
life.
long time.
Well,
Yes.
you're just wired
Yeah.
that way.
But
I know you're wired that way because the first time we were someplace together and you were like, you had a notebook and I had a notebook and I'm like, this is so funny. Like he's like me. And you were
journaling.
like taking notes and I was
journaling.
like glancing over. I don't remember what you wrote, but I just thought, I don't know, like a lot of people, it's kind of rare for me to even meet people that have notebooks and like take it into meetings and take notes.
I had a guy that joined our team.
But you do it too. So do I.
And every time he came in, recently, really young guy, he's 24.
Yeah.
He would come in with like a little journal like that. And I was totally impressed. It was almost like single-handedly sucked me into really being interested in this guy joining the Larkin group.
Yeah. Do you know why I do it? Because I zone out. No, that is
what?
I just thought I would go back there. Well, it's because I have a terrible memory. I don't understand it. Like I've got to figure that out, but I'm working on it. But anyway, I just have a terrible memory. And also there's so much going on in my mind. Like I'm taking in words and feelings and internal messages that I'm receiving. And so I just know that I'm not going to remember everything. So I take notes, right? So it's not even necessarily notes of what the speaker is saying. Like I have notes about like things that will come to mind that I need to do, or just even general thoughts that I want to write down. So it's often not what this, but if there's something that somebody says that kind of like zings me, then I write that down as well. So
I love that.
Because, and then I actually go back and look at like my to-do list and the notes that I've taken because I just don't remember otherwise.
Fully.
So we're similar that way, but looking at ourselves is really painful. And so you and I have had this conversation. So this is like where this whole concept of eyes to see came from, because you've said, why don't people change? People just need to change. Like sometimes it can be frustrating. We get frustrated by other people. We get frustrated by people. And admittedly, like I will admit, I'm less frustrated by it now because I've had to do a lot of work on myself in just allowing people to be where they are. But I used to want to help people. And the problem is, and you learn this in coaching, you can't want something more than your client. So, and we can't want something more for our child than what they want for themselves. As a boss, we can't want something more for an employee.
When you say coaching, you just like so our listeners understand.
Yes.
So you've been
as a wellness coach, as a health and wellness coach.
Like a legitimate health coach. By the way, also not someone who was bored with life, so they self-appointed and started trying to sell programs on the internet. But by the way, you can sell programs on the internet, but I want to actually want to validate that you actually have legitimate skills.
Thank you.
We say in real estate, when we work with a seller to sell their home, that we cannot want to sell your home more than you do.
Yes.
Because the number one thing that keeps sellers stuck is their price. Mm-hmm. And so they get holding on to, and for lots of good reasons, like we need X dollars to move and, whatever. But we sometimes actually have to physically say the words, Jen, I want to help you, but I can't want your home to sell more than you want it to sell.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So yeah, you're right. I love that quote or that statement.
Yeah. So you can't want it more than someone else. So I've had to do a lot of work on myself to accept people where they are and realize that looking in the mirror is painful. It's a painful process. And
I have a long way to go in this area
of accepting where people are.
And accepting where people are, because my viewpoint has been, I'm almost like an evangelist for growth.
Yeah.
For personal growth. Well, gosh, everybody should want to grow.
Yeah. And
then what I realize is a lot of people, they don't want to, or they're just not ready to.
Yes.
Because, like you can stare at a flower. Mm-hmm. I'm laughing because we talked about the studies of water crystals and all that. Uh-huh. But you can stare at the ground as much as you want, but that thing ain't coming out.
Yeah.
Until
it's ready.
Until it's
right. Prime environment. Yeah. I like that actually. So, well, and there's been a lot of acceptance on my part because I've had to go through a lot and it's painful. Like, now as I see people go through divorce, I I'm sad for them, right? I feel some pain because I know how painful it is. And I also know how opportunistic it can be, that there can be incredible, beautiful things. So it's both a pain and some congratulations in some regards, you know? And so there is life after divorce. There's life after tragedy. So
there's so much.
Yeah. So in going through my own things in life, a lot of things, I've come to a place of realizing we have to be ready and we can't force the plant to grow. I like that. So I like this eyes to see, but growth is painful and growth is uncomfortable. And so how do we do it? I don't know. What has been, you said you're a person of growth, Jer. So what does that look like in your everyday life? Or maybe where's an area that you've noticed you have grown that you wouldn't necessarily see on the outside, but you know that you've changed on the inside? And I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, I was having, there's two conversations that are coming up for me that happened recently. I was actually visiting, I'm going to answer with a quick anecdote. I was visiting with an agent at the Larkin Group today who's newish, kind of a year in the business and less than that with us. And this gal's worked really hard and the results there has not been a great payoff.
Yeah.
Which we could look at like, well, what's wrong with our organization? Well, I mean, I love her and we have all the best tools. And quite honestly, you don't even know this woman.
That you're like asking what's wrong with the organization, because I would think what's wrong with her selling.
I ask all the questions.
Yeah.
This is actually where I'm going.
Yeah.
So, wow, that was actually perceptive and you didn't know you're being perceptive.
Okay.
Where I've grown, and I'm going to tell you what I told her, is I always ask, is this a me issue? It doesn't mean I always get it right. Yeah. And that's something that's changed my life a lot, because what I shared with her, I'm not going to use her name today. So I said, I've already shared this anecdote with you. There are two ways you can look at this right now. One is, why am I not selling more real estate? What is the energy of that, Jen? What is the energetic vibrational frequency of that tone?
I mean, it's negative and it's a low frequency, but also it's I deserve this. Why is this not happening for me and to me? Right? Yep. Like everyone else should be, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I deserve this. And then we go into a state of comparison.
Correct.
Right? So yeah.
Beautiful. So I'm going to say the exact words. They say like change emphasis on one word and it changes the meaning. Well, I'm not going to change the emphasis on any word. I'm just going to change the tone. Why am I not selling real estate? Why isn't it working for me? As a matter of fact, I wonder what I'm not, but I could shift. That's where I've grown. That's empowering.
Yeah.
And that has changed a lot of my life. Now it's interesting. Some of the elements of my life in the last year, I've told you, are not where I want them to be. Our business is really it's actually funny. We had the most validating call in the world. We had an economic call last week at the Larkin Group place or firm. And they said, just so you know, this is the hardest, most complicated real estate market besides the Great Recession in 2007 in the history of real estate.
Really? Even with the 80s?
Yeah. They just said this is there's some complexity in what's going on.
Okay.
Well, and you could argue for the 80s, but that's what they said. It was actually like,
you also weren't selling real estate.
No, I wasn't.
In the 80s,
I was 8 years old. I'm 7 years. Actually, I'm 6 years old when the rates peaked.
Okay.
They peaked in 1981. It was like, oh, that helps me feel better. But the point is, we have not been rolling in the dough. And as you know, you've watched me say, I will turn over every rock to see what's going on here. Have I had moments where why is this unfair? Have I done that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's been the biggest growth in my life is I started to get really, really curious all the time, like, what's not working? And I make a lot of reference to my business on the show, but that's because that's a big part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not actually like, you actually know me like in like the intimate level, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we have a really close friendship.
Yeah.
Beyond the show.
Mm-hmm.
Am I actually obsessed with real estate and only care about money?
No, of course
Well,
not.
you paused
No.
for a minute there.
No, of course you.
You know, it's like so far from the top.
Yeah.
Correct.
No, if you were, we would not be here today.
Yeah. So, but I make a lot of references because it's fodder that makes sense for me,
Yeah.
you know? And I talked about in another episode that one of the areas I just see people in my world get it wrong is when it isn't working, they start looking for something to blame. And we have a whole episode on it, blame episode,
Yes.
right? Like, oh, well, maybe my brokerage isn't the right brokerage, or, oh, the leads that the Larkin Group are giving me aren't good enough. We need more training. You know, it's this outward mindset by the, you know, by the Arbinger Institute, one of the best damn books ever.
Yes.
Love that book.
Yeah, Leadership and Self-Deception and Outward Mindset. Oh,
yeah,
so good.
well,
The Anatomy of Peace. They're all so
I'm so
good.
incriminated by those books, right?
Yeah. The first time I read Leadership and Self-Deception was, I think, did I even have a child? I think my oldest was 1. Ooh, it was painful. Maybe she wasn't even born yet. It
You
was
should
painful.
probably read it again.
I know I should. I actually just thought about it yesterday.
Hilariously,
So I
it's
probably
actually
should.
on the shelf. When I was after I did this big race, I couldn't get out of Park City because the traffic was so bad.
Yeah.
And so I stopped in Lehigh and
In
stayed
my
at
guest
Jen's
room,
house.
huh?
And you put me in that guest room and that book's in there. And I was
Yeah.
like, I'm going to read that again. Anyway, true story. That was 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
But, you know, I watch agents in my business do this. And I'm like, I don't ask what's wrong with you. I just say, wow, you're hurting yourself
Yeah.
so much right now.
Yeah.
Because you're shirking all of the gift of ownership. What a gift.
Yeah.
Like, Jen, I'll just ask you a question, and we're not on the same, it's a different episode, but how empowered do you feel every time you take like full responsibility for your life?
Oh, well, it's funny that I can't just say, oh, I feel so empowered. I feel so empowered when I take a step toward responsibility.
There you
Not
go.
just acceptance of responsibility,
Yeah.
but acknowledging it, I feel very empowered. And then when I take that first step, that's when I feel that ownership and, oh, okay, I can make a change. I
Yeah.
don't need to keep blaming.
Well, this is hilarious because I'm actually going to tell a story about Blake.
Okay.
Here I go, Blake. You don't know this. He's laughing in the other room. He and I were standing doing the podcast for the Larkin Group, the Real Estate Morning Drive last Thursday. We got talking about sales after. And he used to be in mortgage, and then he actually door-to-door sold windows for a while.
Okay.
And now they have this awesome business. But he said that he was totally in that mode in the mortgage business at the time. Like, why don't people call me like kind of this unfairness? And Blake, what you said is, you said I started door-to-door selling, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. This was in my control all along. That was powerful, bro.
Yeah. Wow.
I shared it with my team, dude.
Wow.
Like
Good job, Blake.
Remember in Christmas Story when he decodes the little old Fernando decoder ring and it says drink more Ovaltine, and he goes, son of a bitch, crummy commercial. It's kind of like, all along, I didn't realize that the keys to the kingdom, I had them
Yeah.
in my pocket.
Yeah.
I still struggle with this.
Yes. I pulled up, so the book, The
Okay,
Mountain
go
is
ahead.
You, which
Yeah,
we
go ahead.
actually referenced in our blame episode. But man, this book is so good. The Mountain is You by Brianna Wiest, and it is transforming self-sabotage into self-mastery. But I also love, it says, the ultimate seeker's guide for those brave enough to face their own true north and take their power back. And that's ultimately what Eyes to See is about, to me, from my perspective, is seeing our own true north and taking our power back. And the question is, well, where... take it back from what, right? And that's kind of the journey, I think. So in the book, she says, doing the important internal work and preparing for radical change means that if you heal yourself, your life will change, sometimes drastically. If you come to terms...
Oh my gosh. Can you just please read that again?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I've read this
It's
book, by
so
the way,
good,
twice.
huh? I know.
And on Audible.
Yeah.
Please read again. For me, just for me.
And isn't it funny that I have the hard copy, but like I take notes.
I have the hard copy too.
I know, I take notes on my phone. So doing the important internal work And preparing for radical change means that if you heal yourself, your life will change, sometimes drastically. If you come to terms with how
more healing work.
don't we all? And you know what? Here's the thing. We talked about it today. The healing and the work and being human is the journey. There isn't a finish line. So I still, even still, as far as I've come and knowing what I know, I still in the back of my mind have this like belief that there's going to be a finish line. And I'm having a hard time grasping the fact that there isn't. But I think the finish line I'm seeking is some liberation from turmoil. Not that, again, I'm expecting things to just be easy.
Well,
but
Jen, I will interject.
Yes.
Yes, I get what you mean, and I think our listeners do.
Yeah.
Guys, you will go, and Jen, you will go through, we will go through crisis scenarios in our life, and we will get relief from those.
Yes.
So there is kind of a finish line.
So yes. And that's what I'm wanting relief for. But I'm in this 10 years. 10 years. And I should share a little story about that. So anyway, and then she says, if you come to terms with how unhappy you are, it means that you may have to be temporarily more uncomfortable, ashamed, or scared while you start all over. To put an end to self-sabotaging behavior means that change is on the horizon. And this line, your new life is going to cost you your old one. It is going to cost you your comfort zone and your sense of direction. It may cost you relationships and friends. It's going to cost you being liked and understood. And it doesn't matter. The people who are meant for you are going to meet you on the other side. You're going to build, hence you, you're going to build a new comfort zone around the things that actually move forward. Instead of being liked, you're going to be loved. Instead of being understood, you're going to be seen. All you're going to lose is what was built for the person you no longer are. Remaining attached to your old life is the first and final act of self-sabotage. And releasing it is what we must prepare for in order to truly see real change. That's powerful. So I said, I've been on this journey for 10 years. And it was about 10 years ago that I was driving one day and I had this thought, call it angels, call it my own spirit. I don't know, but this thought hit me. It came out of nowhere. I wasn't thinking about anything. I was looking at road signs and this thought came to me and it said, you're not actually ambitious. The only reason that you are, well, it didn't say that. It said, I wish I could remember it exactly now, but it said, you are driven and motivated so that you gain acceptance and love from other people. And it hit me so, I mean, it was like straight to the heart. And it was kind of like, that was my first eyes open moment in my life, really, at that point. And goodness, let's say I'm 45, so I was probably 34 at the time, 35. And I just thought, whoa, I mean, it really kind of caused this existentialistic question for me and not really knowing, because I was very motivated. Like I was a lobbyist. I was, involved in all the things in college. If you look at my resume, it's just dumb with all the stuff I've done. In fact, because I've been applying for jobs, because I lost mine a few months ago, looking at my resume, I forget how much I've done in my life. Sometimes it feels like I've lived 9 lives already. And so in that moment, I had to look at myself and really reflect on, wow, am I actually motivated because I want other people to like me and to love me? Or am I motivated to make a difference? And it took me a little while, maybe a couple months, to realize, okay, I actually am just naturally a motivated person, but my motivation, and I'm an ambitious, driven person, but my motivation was external. And whatever that voice was, it was trying to help me see that my motivation needs to be internal, right? And then about a month later, I had this other experience. I was in prayer and I had this, again, I was like praying and thanking God for things in my life. And my life was not easy at that moment. Like financially, it was completely falling apart. But I just had this like vision in my mind of how judgmental of a person I was at the time. And it was dark. Like it was really dark. I could actually see like conversations that I had with people. It was so weird. It was almost like an experience of a Christmas Story and going to like Ghost of Christmas Past.
I love this.
So it was intense.
Well, that's not Christmas Story. Christmas Story, remember, is Ralphie and the BB gun. A Christmas Carol.
Thank you. A Christmas Carol.
I had to make sure.
Thanks.
What happened
Thanks,
is it threw me off for a minute.
Thanks for not zoning out.
Well, she said that and I was like...
Wrong. Yes. Because you did reference that
you're
earlier,
like,
huh?
So Ralphie takes the BB gun and goes to Ebenezer Scrooge's house. I'm like, wait, they're all rolling together. Okay, so anyway.
You're so good. But it was just, I mean, it was crazy. Like I could see conversations and what was going on in my mind. And I realized, oh my gosh, like in the back of my mind, I'm judging people, right? Like maybe what they're wearing, maybe the house they live in, how they're speaking, is their grammar correct? And that was ugly. That was a really ugly moment. Like that was such an ugly moment that I hid. Like I wanted to hide myself, and I wanted to hide myself from God. Like it became hard to pray for a few months. It was a really interesting moment to face. And what came out of it was I prayed fervently for 2 years to not judge other people. First of all, don't ever pray for that, because what ensued was...
God's like, oh, cool. I've actually got an entire program for that.
Yeah. And the program is ...
Oh,
What
you
does
signed
she
up
say?
for the Stop Judging program. I'm going to deliver super annoying idiots to your life all the time.
Oh, no, worse.
You know what I mean?
I'm going to actually make you fall apart.
Yeah, exactly.
And your
There you
life
go.
fall apart so that you realize that everyone around you is human, but you're the most human, right? And that there is nothing to judge anymore.
Did I just sign up for that program based on our conversations today?
Sorry.
Wait, did I click the wrong thing, Blake?
Yeah.
It's like, damn it. Go
Wrong
back.
channel,
back
wrong
browser,
channel.
back button.
Wait. Yes.
Because I kind of feel like that a little bit.
I know.
Now.
Yeah. I'm sorry. It's a painful program. So it's been interesting to see eyes to see, to develop these eyes to see as I've watched my own life unravel. And it was only a year and a half ago that in working with my current therapist, like you, I've had quite a few therapists, and I love therapy. You know, I feel like in society, we're getting over the stigma of therapy and therapists. And I hope that's true, because really it's a beautiful work to look inside ourselves, and it's painful. But a year and a half ago, I was talking with my therapist about some kind of almost like codependent behaviors. And I said, why is it that I feel this? Why do I alter my behavior? And she ultimately said, well, you know, there's codependency, but also that's perfectionism. And it was a major aha to realize how much perfectionism has led and misled and even ruined my life. And because I was trying to perfect myself, perfect my ex-spouse, perfect my children, perfect my home, perfect my surroundings, perfect my health. And because I was so uncomfortable with change and with things that I couldn't control. And so I thought if I could perfect it, then like things wouldn't be hard, that I wouldn't have to go through hard. And it's interesting that I've gone through some of the hardest things. And so where it leads me to today is having to face the kind of mother I became for a while. And that is my most recent journey in motherhood. And so why do we not do the work of eyes to see? And why is it that some people don't even know?
Oh, I have such a good question. I'm just looking at our time.
Yeah, no, I know.
I don't by the way, as we recorded this episode,
Yeah.
recording this in Santa Clara, Utah, I think it's kind of fun. And we'll jump right back in, but just so people know where we do this. And we're going to Tuacahn tonight to a show.
Yeah.
Right. So, and we're going to feed my parents at my home. So I have the written prompt for the end of the show. I just can't even almost wait for it.
Oh,
so,
I'm excited.
I've got some
You have a
work.
question now?
I've got some work for you and I, and for our listeners. Would you like me to deliver it so we can start to noodle on it? You said why we don't have eyes to see.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to answer it with just another question. And the question for our listeners, we always give a question or two. What do you know? I'm going to ask it two different ways. What do you know that you don't want to know?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Then I'm going to rephrase it. What do you know that you don't want to know? And since
I
our
like
episode
that.
is eyes to see, and this was Jen's topic today, what do you just not want to see?
Yeah.
And then there's so many partner questions that go to that, which are like, what would happen if you saw it? What would
Yeah.
you have to do? I want to go back to your mountain is you quote, like, which she basically, I'm paraphrasing, once you see it, you kind of have to do something about it.
Yes.
But a lot of the time where our misery comes from is we try to shove it back under the rug or the curtains or whatever we do.
Yeah.
But that's the question that I hope that's an okay question.
Yeah.
Like, what do you know that you don't want to know?
Yes.
What is true that you know is true and you just don't want to see it? What do you not want to see?
Yeah.
Because you if you change your life, you'd have to give up your old one, she said.
Yeah.
And when we heal ourselves, sometimes our life changes and rapidly.
And she says even drastically, right?
Even drastically.
I pulled that up because I love it so much.
Even drastically.
If you heal yourself, your life will change. Sometimes drastically, and if you come to terms with how unhappy you are, it means that you may have to be temporarily more uncomfortable,
That's where I was going.
or scared while you start all over.
That was, okay, listen.
Yeah.
Jen, this is so good.
Yeah.
You might have to be temporarily even more uncomfortable.
Yes.
Here's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Can I just jump on this really quick?
No, I
and I
want
know
you to.
our time is not unlimited. I talked about in another episode, or maybe this is this one, but it feels like it was another one, that we like to swim in our own sty. We could talk about the pig sty. Like, why do pigs roll around? And pigs, they really like that, right? And so it's like, oh, this ooey gooey and fun, but we want to swim around in it. And often people will say like, no, I don't. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
You do because you keep choosing it, and here's why. No, the devil you know, as they say. Look, the misery you know is you're comfortable knowing what it is. To change is like, oh no, I might have to have like amputations.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Yes.
In my personality. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
That's why we stay stuck.
Yeah.
That we did talk about in the other episode where I was like, man, I wish everyone should want to change, because personalgrowth.com. But, people don't, don't because it's like,
it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable. It's
like,
hard.
Rip,
it
the Band-Aid comes off. There went all the hair on my arm.
Yeah.
Ah!
Yes.
To
say, I don't like this. It means that we have to do something about it. And sometimes we don't want to. Sometimes we're not ready. So, it's interesting because I mentioned that the thing that I'm dealing with right now in real time is with my kids. And I went into motherhood wanting to be the very best damn mother.
Perfect.
Like
probably.
that much, I felt that much desire to be the perfect mom. It was not just like, I want to be like a mom. It was, I want to be a perfect mom because I was wanting to make up for things that I felt that I didn't have as a kid, and I have a wonderful mom, but a lot of us feel like there are things, that we want differently, right?
Everybody wants to stay mature. Everybody wants to
stay mature.
And
my mom, she struggled and she still struggles.
Sure.
Like
there
were really hard years,
but everybody wants to stay mature finds out that, the parents like that they fell short because our parents had parents and so forth, right?
Exactly. And so it was, so we compensate. And so
Sorry,
instead
Mom and
of
Dad,
me being
love
me, instead of being me, I was like, well, I'm not going to be that way. So I'm going to totally overcompensate. And so anyway, I feel like I was the perfect mom, right? I did all the holidays and activities and parties and showed up to all the events and spent hours reading and playing games with them and having, what are they called? Customs. There you go. Traditions. Yep. And anyway, and then life got harder and harder and harder. And I was put in positions that I had to become the breadwinner. And so I was forced out of the home. And suddenly I was like, where's my role? Like, I'm supposed to be the mom. And I became resentful and angry and thinking this is unfair. And so I started developing this victim mindset. And it's interesting how anyway, so long story short, I'm not in that cycle anymore. And yet I created that habit of, well, I can't show up because I have to go to work. I'm not here for you because I have to work. I'm not here for you because I was forced into this role that I don't want to be, right? And so there was like so much victimization, like the victim mindset and blaming. And my kids are incredible kids. They're so good, but like our relationship has become more and more strained, and I couldn't figure it out. And I just thought, they don't understand. They don't understand how hard it's been. They don't understand what I've been through. If they don't even understood how hard motherhood is. And finally, it was literally maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago where I realized, I'll just tell the story. I was out on a run. This is a very shameful moment, but I was out on a run, first day of school for my older 2 kids. They're senior and sophomore in high school. And I was out on a run, and I looked at the time and I realized I wasn't going to make it home for their first day of school.
These, by the way, I want to interject something. These are not little children.
No.
Okay, we're talking like
senior,
teenagers. You know what I mean?
almost 18 and 15.
And an
so,
11-year-old.
They don't need me home.
I just so this isn't like I also left my kids in their crib with like a piece of cardboard on top so they wouldn't jump out, or I don't know. You know what I mean? Like
yes.
unattended for years. No, but keep going, because I appreciate the pain for you.
So thank you. And it was, I mean, as I'm saying this, my brain is saying, why are you sharing this? It's a Brene Brown moment. Like,
well, Jen,
what are you saying? What are you saying? Why are you sharing this?
I want to ask a question before you finish the story. Was this a case of, it isn't important to be with my kids this morning. They don't need, it's not important? Because I don't think that was the thought process. So
no, but
right?
here's the thing. I think there was a little bit of justification.
But I'm saying these moments are vague.
Yes.
These aren't
correct. Yeah.
For most of our listeners, this isn't like, I decided that I had no morals and ethics, so I did this super unethical thing. No, I think what happens is in the moment,
like just a minor justification, right?
It's muddled.
Yeah. Yes.
That's all. You went out for a run.
Yeah.
You thought you'd be back on time.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you weren't going to be.
Yeah.
Then the justification. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm helping a little bit.
Yes. No, thank you. And you're right. And then there's like the justification
the intention was
that's
actually
so
to be there.
Subtle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
that was so subtle in my mind. And then, it was kind of but they're leaving earlier than I had planned and blah, blah, blah. Like you have all this self-talk of, well, why it happened, kind of going back to blame. But then I just had this realization, Jen, I talk to myself a lot. This is Maddie, my oldest daughter. This is her last first day of school. This is her last first day of school, and you are missing it. Can you even imagine how I felt in that moment? And the problem was there was nothing I could do. What's that?
Can I imagine? Yes. Which is actually why we have such a great relationship.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
You can.
I can.
Yes.
Because I've done things of this sort. And there's a beautiful thing that's happening in this conversation.
Yeah.
We don't change until the change of
the pain of change is greater.
Then the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change.
Yes. Yeah.
Because there was a gift that came. So keep going.
Yeah.
I'm kind of spoon feeding the gift.
And thank you. And thank you. So anyhow, it was this, and you know what? How cute are my kids? Like I'm like coming up with plan B, and I'm thinking, oh, well, instead of meeting them at home, I'll just meet them at their school. Right? Because they had to go early, like super early. They got there at 7:20 a.m. and school starts at 8. So I thought, I'll just meet them at their school, and then I can wish them off and I'll get a picture, and like I can remedy it. My senior and sophomore don't want me showing up at their school and asking them, hey, stand in front of your school and I'm going to take a picture of you. Mm-hmm. They're the best kids. But they didn't want that. But they did give me hugs. And anyhow, what followed was me realizing, wow, I have developed this rationalization. I almost couldn't say that word. I've been rationalizing in my brain for the last few years. And for a while it served me, but it no longer serves me. And it's no longer serving the relationship with my kids. And the relationship with my kids is not where I want it to be. And I'm guessing where they want it to be, because there's contention because of me. The whole time I was thinking, they don't understand. It's because of them. And it's because of me. And I started to see how subtly I had this mindset that was causing me to not show up for my kids in the way that I want to show up. Like I almost get emotional about it because
well, you certainly can. This is the eyes to see. So remember the question we asked of our listeners, write down. What is true that you don't want to, what is true that you don't want to see?
Yes.
What do you not want to see?
Yeah.
What do you know that you don't want to know?
Yeah.
Do you see the validity of this? The interesting thing that I would say to you is you're actually a great mom. And the contention between you and your kids, just as an observer, has very little to do with the first day of school, as you know.
Yes.
Because what happened is a thread started to get woven, a chain, right? It's what we talked about in the other episode when I was talking about blame, and I'm at my therapist's office saying that I was kind of ticked that Jen and my kids weren't at the first aid station with my stuff when they needed to be.
Yeah.
And she's like, what are you getting from that? She wasn't really talking about that moment. She was like, what are you getting from that in your life?
Yes.
In all the ways you blame. I want to point this out for you and for our listeners. Your contention had very little to do with the first day of school.
Yeah.
The first day of school was actually the symptom of the issue.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Does that resonate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was just a reflection, because what we usually find out, guys, like at my home, I have a historic vacation rental downtown St. George. I started to realize that there was all this big old problem coming down the wall of the inside of the front entryway. And what happened is there's a major roof leak somewhere that's going to cost me between $7,000 and $12,000 to fix. The water, the drip on the wall is the first day of school.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Right?
It's a good analogy.
Yep. There's your first day of school.
Yeah.
That's just like the problem started a long time ago.
Yes.
Because again, I see you as a good mother. And I'm hoping that someone hears your story today and has their own tears and says, damn it, I need to shift this thing in my life, because that brought me to see myself. Because what happened for you that day, that moment was so painful that what?
Yeah.
And we probably have to wrap this up in the interest of our time tonight.
Yes.
That moment was so painful that what?
Well, that it forced me to finally see what I didn't want to see, which was I'm the problem, that I have not been showing up for my kids in the way that they need and want.
Yeah. We're not talking about food.
And
we're not talking about food and raiment, as they say in the Bible. Sure you did all those things.
Yeah.
And you were positive and you're loving and you'd stay up late with them if they needed to talk to a mom. All those were happening.
Yeah.
But this subtle thing.
But there was just something there was a little bit of a blame and victim mindset that started years prior when I was put in a position that I didn't want to be put in. And I carried it through into present day when I finally realized, this no longer serves me, right?
I love this so much. I want to share a thought, because you do some health coaching. And I heard somebody recently say something so beautiful. It was, I can't remember who. It's one of the guys I really like on Instagram. Oh, Peter Crone.
Yeah.
He said, I work with a lot of people who struggle with obesity, and they're like, I will stop having cookies in my house. And he said, the cookies in the house, the donut they ate that day, I'm just using a dumb analogy.
Yeah.
Is the drip on the wall.
Yeah.
He said, why don't we actually find out what happened in your past?
Yes.
Or what's happening way deep down inside of your soul that causes you to decide to run to the store and buy boxes of donuts.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. I agree.
Why don't we have the eyes to see? Why don't we have I was like, I love Peter Crone. So beautiful, right? Yeah. Like, guys, we're just so often as human beings, and Jen, we're just so often treating the symptom.
Yeah.
I better take 4 more Advil. We were talking about at my race that I took 1 million painkillers. Yeah, because I was in the middle of an 11-hour race.
You didn't take 1 million. I wouldn't let you take 1
But
million.
you know my point. Those aren't the issues.
Yes.
But if you're having a headache every afternoon, you might start to ask what's actually going on instead of taking 3 Excedrin every afternoon. Yeah. There's something causing the headache.
Yes.
So I'm going to invite our listeners. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Thanks for you've really led.
Thanks for wrapping us up.
I've added, I hope, not too much.
No, I love it.
Your vulnerability is so beautiful. There is absolutely a mother, father, or spouse, or someone who needed to hear that story, right? And The vulnerability hangover, Brene, yeah, you may feel that after. I think you did the right thing today. Guys, the question for you and the question for us is what is true what do you know that you don't want to know? What do you not want to see?
Yeah. What's in our heart? Because that internal work is the hardest work and it's the most rewarding.
Yeah.
Because you know what? We get to show up for ourselves and show up for others.
Correct.
So the invitation,
Amen.
The question is, what is it that we don't want to see? That we're not seeing that we don't want to see, but we know? I like that question.
Mm-hmm.
And then what is it that how else did you ask it?
Don't remember.
I don't either. Anyway, go back and
We'll
listen.
go back and re-listen.
So, but more to come. And this is a great work. It really is. It's
Guys,
worth it. So
follow us on any of the platforms and please share this with someone that you love because we're just getting going and we hope that there's some value for somebody. Over and out.
Thanks.